Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast, episode 41. This is another little special episode we're doing just about the behind-the-scenes kind of making of the feature that I'm working on right now. Of course, I'm joined by Clark, as always, Clark Coffee. How's it going?
Hello. It's going fantastic. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Very
Excellent.
good, actually, yeah.
I'm excited to hear about your movie and how production's coming along.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, from the last episode like this we did, I've done my first shoot day.
Yeah, all right.
So beforehand, I was just in rehearsals, and now
Right.
I've shot one day, and I've had to shift some schedule things, but everything is going quite smoothly right off the bat.
Fantastic.
I know that's not great for the drama and the the excitement of the listeners, but
you've got 90% of your shoot days left, so I'm sure that we're going to get something. We'll get some drama in there at some point, you know. But
I hope so.
But it'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, to recap a little bit, you know, our last and first special episode, we kind of talked a little bit about the rehearsals that you were doing, preparation. I mean, we covered everything from kind of your writing process to, you know, casting, prepping with actors, how you were putting together your shot list and how your rehearsals were informing that, and a lot of different things like that. So I think it'd be interesting to we can quickly in a short episode here, touch base on how all that pre-production preparation is actually shaking out in real life on the field, your first day of production. So yeah,
let's perhaps go into like what was done, what was actually planned, and then how that shaped out due to the actual prep work,
actual real world.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, we had scenes 2 to 11 to shoot, and many of those scenes were just transitional or just tiny moments, 1 or 2 shots.
And
so
how many pages roughly?
I'd say about 12 pages.
So that's that's a lot.
A huge chunk. Yeah.
It's a huge
chunk. The reason that I kind of overloaded it and knew that I was over scheduling was just because everything is so local that I've got days set aside in case reshoots had to happen and things like that. But as I'll get into, I think very much owing to all the prep work, it actually went really, really smoothly. We got pretty much everything we wanted to get done. Actually, not even pretty much. Literally everything we wanted to get done.
Okay, great. You made your day. Good.
With time to spare. We were about half hour below or ahead of schedule, which was very, very surprising to me. So, and never felt like it was rushing, never felt like there was anything that was like going, haywire, or that I had to
no stress, no
sacrifice
drama.
Quality for speed or something like that. Like, it was always really, every shot that we got, I did until I got it. And,
until you got it.
We retook and stuff like that and set up, and it wasn't this mess of chaos that
So things went smoothly. You had a lot to shoot, but you got it done, and you feel good about all the footage that you got. I want to ask, because I don't hear. I mean, periodically you'll hear a director talk about how they begin their very first day of shooting. I'm always curious because I think it's a huge deal. I think that it makes a big difference how a director rallies the troops and kicks off that very first day of shooting. I know, some directors have kind of a ritual that they go through. Others don't make a big deal about it. And it's just kind of like, okay, let's just start. They don't really make a scene. I'm curious, how, and I know that you have a pre-existing relationship with most, not all, of the people that you're working with, and it's a relatively small cast and crew, but still important. How did you start your very first day of shooting?
Very casually. Not, both owing to a few things. One of the things was that one of the people was a little bit late. So for a lot of setup, it was actually just me and essentially with my first AD. You're
not going to say any names, are you?
No, it's okay. They got the strap. No, so it was just, for the first little bit of setup, it was actually, just for a while, just me and the first AD kind of hanging out, setting up the equipment, really casual. And then the actors were all called at different times as well.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a big, moment where everyone had arrived, and I did like a speech or something like that. Like, it was very much, when people arrived, my priority is to make them comfortable and to give them space to prepare themselves.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when the first actor arrived, who plays the main character, we were still sort of setting up some of the dollies and stuff like that. And so I sort of said, if you want to head inside, get a drink of water, and just kind of like run over some lines and just relax for a bit. We'll come in and get you when we're ready.
Yeah.
And even when the second actor arrived, it was the same thing. Like, I was just kind of like, make yourself comfortable.
Yeah.
Relax. Because I think that's a big thing, is that people, they wake up in the morning, they're all hyped up, they get in their car, they drive, they're still all hyped up, and they kind of get to set, and sometimes they're just forced to jump into it. They don't really have a time to just kind of sit back and relax and get their nerves down, or even if they don't have nerves, just at least get kind of their head straight.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, rather than making a huge deal about anything, that's kind of what I tried to do. I would say that the beginning of shooting, like the grand kind of perhaps ritual, so to say, was actually during the prep when we did the equipment day, because that was kind of the first day that everyone had been together. So that day I definitely sort of made a bigger deal about, like, all right, here's like what the goals are, here's what we're going to be doing, here's kind of the breakdown of like how set's going to run, things like that. But again, owing to prep work, that was a really handy thing to have gotten out of the way prior to our first shoot day, because then we could just kind of get into it. So not necessarily a matter of like people showing up and just kind of going, all right, let's get it. Still having, a moment of conversation and a moment to give the actors to kind of sit around, decompress, and relax for a little bit and get in their headspace.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a million different ways you can do it, right? And I think like everybody's got their own way, but I do think it's important, that it's kind of, that in some way you kind of allow for a transition from like real world to like, okay, now we're doing this other thing. Like now we're making a movie. We are entering into a world of imagination, and this is a place where we play. And I mean, it's work, but this is where we're, especially for actors, where they're allowed to kind of transition from real world to, movie world.
I'm in the headspace. Yeah,
Exactly. Okay. So you kind of casually went into that. Let's talk about, I know you did a lot of prep. You did a lot of rehearsals with your actors. And the day that you shot, I mean, it sounds like things went great. So I'm assuming that rehearsal really paid off. But maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about how do you feel like the rehearsals impacted that first day of shooting?
Well, I mean, again, because I had my, I guess I'll break it into two things, performance and visual. And they're, I'll go in the opposite order. I'll go visual first. Because I had my viewfinder at the rehearsals, I was able to, again, as we discussed the last time we did this, I was able to alter shots. I was able to simplify scenes and kind of like cut things out of the shot list that I realized weren't necessary, just because I had my viewfinder there, and I was able to kind of go, okay, I can actually get this scene from here, and then I don't have to worry about that other shot. It becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so it was really handy for that, because then when I got on set, I was able to put the camera in the spot where I knew it had to be, and there was no surprise. It wasn't like suddenly when the actors crossed, oh no, that suddenly shifted that element of the scene, and I can't do that. I've got to figure out another shot, because I had already shot it all in my head when I had the viewfinder, which again was infinitely handy.
Okay.
So that was kind of the visual side of it. I also knew, again, I'd done lighting tests and camera tests extensively just by myself beforehand, so I knew how I was going to light the scene. I remember even one of the actor who I actually know the least kind of said, like, I wish all film sets were this efficient, because it was literally like they got there and all the lights were set up. I hardly had to worry about adjusting light for the actors.
Okay.
If I did adjust light between shots, it was just a very minor like minute of just going, okay, I'm actually going to put the light a little bit lower because there's too much shadow under the eyes or something like that. So there was nothing that was like, actors get into your spots, now we're going to take half an hour to light, and then we'll go. Like, it was very, very, my priority was efficiency. And so to me, that just means balancing high quality, but also not taking so much time to do something that people's energy just drops off.
Right.
And so that also really got into, I think, performances, because I didn't, like, there wasn't, between takes, it was a really low take count. I think we averaged about 3 or 4 takes per shot.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
And in the dialogue. And the reason for that was because I was able to, the first 2 takes, let's say, were kind of warming up to it and trying things out. And then the third take, I was able to sort of say, like, remember when we did this in the rehearsal and we sort of tried it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And they would go, yeah, because the rehearsal was only 2 weeks ago. So they had that completely, in the back of their heads. And they were like, oh, yeah, totally. Let's try that way. And so I could just kind of pull that out at any moment without having to go, okay, let's break for 10 minutes while I sit down with the actors and we go through this.
Right.
We'd already done all that work. So there was no need to, again, slow everything down by discussing, like, what are we feeling in this scene? How do you like that? Like, maybe let's try it this way, because we'd already gone through so many different ways of doing the scene in the rehearsal that we'd all kind of agreed on. That really works.
You landed on the performances in your rehearsals pretty solidly. Yeah.
So it was really, really easy to, again, to allow me to just kind of like run through the scene, and maybe I'd have a few notes about timing or just like slight notes about blocking or positioning or something like that. But as far as the performances, like my only really performance notes were just like really, let's accentuate that line a little bit more. Let's emphasize that part, because I think that'll really work, and the look that you're giving works really well. So, but never anything really expansive or like, this has to completely be reworked, because the prep was already done.
You'd found it. So, okay. Yeah. So it sounds like that your rehearsal really translated
absolutely
to actual performances. Sounds like it was really helpful to be able to refer back to that. You could kind of, if an actor was not quite hitting it the way you wanted it, you could kind of say, hey, take your mind back to when we did XYZ in the rehearsal, and you had like a place to point to guide them back to, as opposed to kind of having to try to find it out of nothing.
And they're all super, again, super versatile, communicable actors.
Yeah,
I think that was like what's really great about working with the people that I was working with. And I think any director will say that that's kind of the best type, is that it's never like you're doing it wrong. It's always just kind of like, let's shift that moment. Like even something as far as, put a bigger pause between those 2 lines can change the emotion of it, because maybe then, rather than saying the second line, in more of a yelling voice, because that pause is now introduced, you say it in a much quieter tone. So things like that, where
so it just sounds like technical, just really kind of little technical tweaks on readings, kind of things.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like too that it helped you remain really efficient. Not a lot of setup time between setups, because you had already pre-planned lighting. Refresh my memory. Now, did you do rehearsals? You didn't do rehearsals in the space.
No. The rehearsals were done in a studio space.
So did you find that your lighting setups and things translated to the actual
Well, I actually didn't
location?
light the rehearsals at all. The spaces that I had actually been in, the first shot was actually, one of the scenes was actually just shot in my kitchen. So I had the advantage of, being able to light that whenever I want. And then the other scenes, I'd just done kind of extensive scouting and taken my camera there, because the other scenes were outdoors, taken my camera there and gotten kind of variations of like, okay, this is what it'll look like overcast. This is what it'll look like when it's sunny. This is what it'll look like if it's, depending on the time of day, and was able to actually get kind of what's the best time for us to be there, both in lighting wise, but also in terms of like how busy is the place at different times of day.
Okay.
So in terms of lighting, I also, as I think we've kind of talked about a lot, I light really simply.
Okay.
I kind of try and take the Connie Hall approach to things, which is just like have one sort of master light that influences all the other lighting. So if you want to change it, you just bounce, as opposed to setting up a whole new light. That tends to, and also really taking cues from the natural lighting of the space. That's kind of where I run from. So because I was so familiar with the space and the lighting in the space, I didn't have to worry, as I am thankfully with literally every location we're doing, even the ones that I don't own and am renting. I'm still already familiar with them. So again, that's such an advantage when it comes to lighting, that I know what works and what doesn't work, because I've done camera tests in those locations, and I know that hey, I don't even need to position a light there, because that wall actually just bounces the sunlight really nicely. And
so you were really honed in on it. Though you didn't, I gotcha. So even though you didn't rehearse in the space, you were super familiar with the space, and
Mm-hmm.
you keep your kit simple and just to what you need. And so, okay, so then with your shot list, that you kind
Mm-hmm.
of, it sounds like you honed that in your rehearsal. Did you find that translated basically 1-to-1? Did you find that you had to kind of adapt at all or make any
I'd say
changes? Or
99% of the shots were
okay,
exact as they are in the shot list. The again, that was another thing that the rehearsals came, as I mentioned, super in handy for, was that the shot list did change when I was starting to block with the actors, because I was able to go, we don't actually need X, Y, Z. I can just shift this camera over here and get all of that in one, perhaps one master or something like that.
yeah,
So there were some shots on set that I even then I realized, like, oh, I actually don't really need. I can't really recall exactly at the moment what they were. But a few times, yeah, we crossed a few things off just because I realized that it was tertiary. It wasn't there for something to cut to. And but then on the other hand, there were also shots that we did get that I didn't use.
yeah,
Some especially when we were outside in the location that I couldn't really control, and that it wasn't a location that we had like rented. It was just a parking lot, so at any time somebody could come ask us to leave. There, I was a lot more careful about getting pretty much everything I could possibly think I needed, so that in the event someone asked us to leave, or in the event that something doesn't work, we don't have to go back there and reshoot anything, because I've got such a wide variety of stuff to choose from. But even then, in the edit, I wound up only using like 2 shots from those locations of perhaps the 4 or 5 that we did shoot.
gotcha.
So yeah, there was definitely the shot list again. I'm a big believer in shot lists. I think that the night and day between when I used to make movies without shot lists, like I think the last movie I probably made without a shot list was the one I did for the Werner Herzog Masterclass.
Right.
And I remember, like, so many times there'd be a moment where somebody would walk out of a room in that, or there'd be like an action, and I'd be like, I just need something to cut to between that, because those 2 shots don't cut together. Like, I need an insert of something, or I need something in between there. And it always was just so frustrating to get into the edit and be like, damn it, those shots don't cut. And then I think the movie I did about a year after that, which was kind of like the first large scale short film I'd say I'd ever done, which took place over a few months, and shooting was a while, and it was about half an hour long. That was the first time I'd ever used a shot list, and again, it was such night and day between getting to the edit and having everything, and not having to be like, did I get that shot? Did I forget that? Because I'm literally just sitting there checking off. Well, I'm not. The first AD is literally sitting there checking off. And in addition to that, like, my first AD, Adam, has been really helpful, because he also writes which takes are the best, or like he'll like make a note in a column of every take and sort of say like, okay, this one was good at this point. Not so good for the ending. There was a mic issue in this one. There was, so I can actually look at when I'm cutting together and when I'm syncing audio, when I'm choosing which shots to take and use, I'm looking at this, not only the shot list, but I'm looking at his kind of graph of which takes in these shots worked and which takes didn't work. So everything was just, again, like, I think the thing is, it sounds like so much to do. And this is one of the things that funny enough, I actually spent the last week teaching a class as well, 4.5 hours a day, which was quite a lot of work to do, to kind of come
Yeah.
home from that and have to edit. But one of the things that I said to them is I actually showed them the production binder, like the kind of the production Bible I have. And I was like, it looks like there's a lot in here. It looks like this is a ton of work, but it's really not. It's really, a lot of it's just common sense. And so when I talk about, the first AD writing down the takes that work, it's like, that seems like an extra step to have to take. But it's really not, because I think everyone sort of looks at each other anyway at the end of a good take and says, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not just write it down?
Organization is so key, and it's easy to get wrapped up in, especially if you're running behind, and that's where preparation helps on so many fronts, because it is kind of a cascade effect, right? If you get on set, you're not well prepared, you start to get behind schedule, then you start making shortcuts that are going to cost you so much later. And these things don't take a lot of additional time, but when you feel rushed, or you feel kind of stressed, or if you're tired, you're kind of pushed to the limit, these things often start to fall to the side and get lost.
Yeah. you
But
leave
they
things
could be
behind. Yeah.
so helpful, so helpful. And you're right. It's just like an extra second, and it's going to save you so much time in editing. Especially now, I mean, it sounds like you didn't shoot a lot of coverage, extra stuff. You didn't do a ton of takes, so not huge, but still a big time saver. And especially if you did have a lot of coverage, if you did do a lot of takes, oh my gosh, to go through all of that without any kind of indication as to what you felt, in the moment
Worked, yeah.
worked. That you're starting from scratch. So excellent. I mean, what sounds like all the way around the all the pre-production planning that you did really helped make this a super efficient, super productive shoot. You got 12 pages in a day, and you're happy with what you got.
Well, and I think that's the funny thing too, is that like if I were to describe someone beforehand, it's like, hey, I'm shooting a feature. I've got literally 3 crew, 3 actors, and we're going to do 12 pages in a day. I think that would be one of those things that people would go, yeah, good luck. I would too. I, again, had planned set aside time to do reshoots for this day, or like an overspill day, in case, because I didn't think that we'd be able to get it. But again, I think that, and this isn't only just it's a testament to the pre-production. I think is just that the more you prepare, people, I think, overthink, and I think a big thing that a lot of people do too is panic. Like you said, they start going, oh, we don't have time, and they start cutting corners, and then maybe the quality isn't there, or even you just miss a shot or something, and it's like that just winds up costing you more time in the long run, because you're gonna have to either go back and fix it, or
the film will suffer because
as good.
So it sounds like, it sounds like a lot of stuff went right, and I'm excited to see the footage. Did anything go wrong, and did you learn anything, and would you change anything about your first day on the job here?
I would say that the closest thing to going wrong was just the one sound guy showing up late. But
sound
that wasn't
guy,
a big deal.
whoever you are, get a better alarm.
I wasn't angry or anything like that.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, busting chops here just in case they're listening.
I'm saving my image, because I actually was, I was furious. But
right, I could just imagine.
Yeah, but
I've heard rumors, Cullen.
There's a perfect example of just being able to like snap into another thing, which is just that the sound guy was like, hey, okay, sorry, slept through my alarm. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Right.
And I was like, that's totally fine, because we'll just get there was a bunch of shots that we were going to get that were MOS anyway, which is just motor only shot, or without sound. And so we were just like, let's just get those. We'll just shift those ahead in the schedule, and we'll get all those shots. And literally, as we got done with those shots, he was there. So
Nice.
The timing worked out perfectly. And again, like a lot of these things are circumstantial. Will that timing always work out as perfectly as it did? No. But I think that's, again, also why it's like, don't panic. just kind of go with the flow of things, and
keep your cool. Keep your cool. Yeah.
And again, had I, which I would never do, but had I like freaked out at him and been like, what, you're not here for my shoot, and it's, that would just totally kill the mood of the whole day.
Yeah,
I think that's something
a tough
that if
balance.
if you've worked on a set before, that the people who like get angry or have really short tempers, they just can kind of kill a whole shoot, because it's just kind of like, I'm not enjoying this at all. What am I doing here?
Yeah. It can be a fine line. It can be a fine line, and it sometimes can be difficult. Yeah, and often on a film set there are people of passionate personalities, and things can sometimes be challenging. But yes, it's always for the best if you can maintain diplomacy, professionalism, courteousness. Absolutely. This kind of romanticized idea of actors or directors or just artists in general that are kind of like off the hook and wild and kind of being ridiculous. It's just, in the real world, that just doesn't fly.
No. It's and when people attempt it, it definitely doesn't fly, and it just ruins things. I find. So I mean, again, to me, it was like, the embarrassment of sleeping through your alarm is usually enough to prevent you from doing it again.
Yeah,
exactly. So I'm not gonna make the person feel bad for.
And a lot of times you can do fun things. I mean, I've heard stories where if on professional sets, even like big time professional sets, where if somebody makes the mistake of having their phone and it goes off, within kind of the the zone of the camera, that they kind of do like slightly hazing, but also funny. Like people will show up with T-shirts that are like, making fun of the person whose alarm that went off, or or if somebody falls asleep on set, they'll like take a funny picture of them and they'll have a little like board of shame. You can make it fun, and obviously you have to be very careful. I'm not suggesting that it's appropriate that you like haze somebody in a way that is going to be misconstrued as malicious. I don't think that's appropriate. But I mean, there are kind of fun ways that you can have a sense of humor about these things. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And so you never want to be so harsh on somebody, because like, look, eventually you're going to make a mistake too. And then, how would you want to be treated? So it's like, I always used to, like when I was younger, I used to think, well, the only thing that matters is the film, and it's like nothing else matters. And it's like, you get the film done and everything is a sacrifice for that. And like, who cares about anything else? And I couldn't have a more different perspective now. I mean, I don't feel like the ends justify the means, as some people out there might think that's horrible. But, as much as I love film, I don't think it's appropriate to sacrifice people and their well-being for a film. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's called for. So that's my 2 cents.
There were other things too that I was actually supposed to have 2 additional people there to just help out. The person who did sound was actually not the sound person, but the sound person was away at the moment, which I knew in advance, so I was able to kind of shift that around. But then there was another person there that was kind of going to act as a grip, who wasn't able to be there. But again, as I mentioned, because of the prep and because I intentionally kind of overbooked everything so that I would have the ability to shift things around like that, it wound up not even being like a speed bump. It was just like, yeah, okay, plan for that, and let's just go with plan B. And in terms of larger scale things going wrong too, we were supposed to actually shoot this past, so it was the first 2 Sundays ago was our first shoot, and then this past Sunday was supposed to be or I guess it was 1 Sunday ago. This Sunday was supposed to be our second shoot, but I had to shift that to next Sunday because of the rain. But even then, because of the prep work and stuff like that, I was like, well, we actually wound up shooting one of the scenes. I had rewritten very last minute the scene that was supposed to be shot this coming Sunday to fit it into the day of last Sunday, so our first shoot day, and it actually wound up working way better. I think the scene works way better on its own. And that was actually just because I couldn't find a location for it. I couldn't find the interior that we needed. I just couldn't there was nowhere available to rent it out.
Yeah.
And so I rewrote it to be an exterior, and that's why we shot it last Sunday. But because of the rain this past Sunday, I was actually just able to shift that shoot to the day that we would have done that interior. So again, like just knowing the prep work, knowing people's availability has been, unbelievably useful, because I've just been able to shift things around like that and sort of be like, okay, we can just take that Sunday and use it for that. So
planning and preparation will give you the freedom to or empower you, I guess is maybe a better way to say it, to be able to do those kind of things.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
Well, any other like parting final kind of thoughts? I mean, I'm excited for you, man. It sounds like things are going really well. I hope that we can find a way to share the results of all of your work. I'm sure
once I start, I've got for some of the shoots, I'll have like a BTS videographer there that I'm going to start putting up kind of production diaries.
Yeah.
I guess one parting thing is that even though you should always expect things to go wrong and plan for the worst. One thing that feels very good to me is logistically that first day was the hardest. Okay. And so knowing that now we've no longer got any locations that we're not fully in control of is a great feeling. And that even though I don't feel like we rushed, there's no longer that pressure of like, we can't spend all day here.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of it. Again, I'm anticipating anything that might go awry, but as of right now, it's smooth sailing, and perhaps in a month I'll look back on this and be like, you naive son of a bitch.
And so just to be clear, you've got 9 more shoot days left, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 9.
Yes, our ninth or our second is coming up, so 9, yeah.
And you're shooting pretty much primarily on weekends, correct? So you'll be shooting over the course of the next 2 months or so, roughly-ish.
Yeah, I think we wrap production just mid-August, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it'll be fun to get some periodic updates from you, and I, not that I want anything dramatic to happen, but when it does, at least you'll have the silver lining of being able to have a story for us here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Cullen. Well, thanks for taking the time to share some of your experience with us, and everybody out there, thanks for taking the time to listen. We will see you all next time. Until then, take care.
Bye-bye.